It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor, and that's Jennifer Johnson of Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit 3magnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors, retirement, financial planning, and investments. Securities offered through Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Private Client Services are not affiliated. Private Client Services is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another real estate episode with Blake Ginther. He is with the Ginther Group in Winston-Salem. The information on how to reach them is right there in our show notes. Blake is not using his walking pad today. I just learned before we started recording that you have a walking pad.
I'm standing on it.
I'm incredibly jealous. I'm incredibly jealous. And
you just told our listeners that I'm an old man.
Yes, I did. But it's not the first time that they've heard something in this episode that makes them believe that you and I are both old men.
I'll show you something that I had to get for the first time ever.
Okay. Oh, wow. Are those the light reducing glasses, or are they prescription
I'm not
glasses?
ready for that yet. I had 20/20 vision until I don't know, my mid 40s. And now I just all of a sudden started getting blurry when I was reading things and then to the point of like getting slightly dizzy and realized that was not me going crazy. That was my eyes changing. So I now have readers, as the old man should, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, it's here. It doesn't affect your eyes in a negative way. Listening to podcasts.
Fair. That's right. Just keep listening.
That's right. Just keep listening. We're not going to draw your eyes away from anything. We're not going to put any strain on your eyes, maybe on your ears, depending on what we have to say.
True.
Okay, Blake, let's talk about the market as we are midway through the first quarter of 2026. We're recording this in mid-February. And I'm wondering what kind of an effect the massive snowstorm, the double-barreled snowstorm that we had, the ice, and for the first weekend, and then getting close to a foot of snow right after that. Kids were out of school for 2 weeks. The city was nearly shut down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, I got to imagine that has a significant impact on what happens in the real estate market, like it did with so many other things. So where are we as of today?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we were off to like our best January ever. It ended up being a really good January, but the snowstorm, the first ice apocalypse, and then the snowstorm the next weekend just really set us back. From a listings perspective, we are way behind. Forsyth County has like mid 900s. We're floating between 975, and then on Monday, when everybody marks them under contract, or the listings that come in under contract over the weekend, we get down into like the 930 vicinity, and we've been doing that now for several weeks. And usually by now, we're in four figures. And to put it in perspective, last year we were up by late Q3, Q4, we were in the 1200 vicinity. I think we even came close to 1300. So for us to be less than 1,000 when what we're going to say is like peak season, which is around the corner. I mean, peak season in our market is really March and April. Yeah. So, I mean, people will be listening to this pretty darn close to March. So
we're getting there.
We're getting
there. It's just been maybe a slower climb to get there.
Yeah. And we're talking to a bunch of people. I've been helping a lot of people get their homes ready for market. So I feel that they're coming. But most of the time, usually they would have already come. But to your point, those 2 weeks really slowed us down.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks can be a big chunk of a season, of a quarter, and so yeah, it put a lot of things behind. But we're heading there. On the day of our recording, it's a little warm. This Friday, the 20th, which is the day after our recording, it's going to be very warm. It's going to get up into the 70s. So we're getting there, and people are going to start moving a little quicker, I think, on some of this stuff, won't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah. So what do you want to tell people right now about expectations? When as we're getting into spring, this will be the last time they get a chance to hear from us before spring officially arrives and warm weather arrives, hopefully for good. But as people start to get ready for that part of the year, what do you want to say to them about what their expectations should be this spring?
Well, so this is like the only thing I was like, we got to talk about expectations before we hit record, because this is the thing that I think is the hardest for agents. Adam, like 60% of my field is new since COVID.
Still 60% because
Oh yeah, yes,
it's been very high since COVID.
it
Yes.
it keeps ticking up. Well, because granted, obviously that makes sense because the retirees, a lot of the folks are retiring out of my industry or doing less transactions, frankly. So I should say 60% of the transactions are being done by agents who are licensed basically from 2020 on. And where I'm going with that is how can they, our number one job, the number one job of a realtor is to help set proper expectations for the client. Well, how can they set expectations for something they don't know? I'm not blaming them. I'm not like, we've already established that I'm old, so I've been doing this a little bit. But at the end of the day, it takes experience to know what a proper repair request and proper negotiations looks like on the front end, what the second step of, there are agents who never, I mean, for years we didn't have repair requests, right? It was like, I'm going to pay you 50 grand for you to take your home off the market. And I know I can't ask for anything now because you've got my 50,000. And we've well established that we're not in that market. Now we're back at the market where if you're a seller and you're hitting the market, I mean, do you know how many showings you're expecting for those first couple of weeks? Do you know if you get the showings, what do you do thereafter? If you don't get the showings, what do you do thereafter? And then ultimately, let's just say for, easy math, right? You list it at 400,000 and you maybe were a little high and you got 7 or 8 showings in those first 3 weeks. By the way, you shouldn't wait longer than 3 weeks to make a price adjustment. If you don't sell in those first 3 weeks or you don't get the showings, then that says something. If you get the showings, you don't get an offer, you're close. You make a minor adjustment. So at 400, you get 7 or 8 showings in 21 days, no offers, and you go, all right, well, we're close-ish. We dropped to 389.9. Where do you think your offer is going to come in? Let's say it takes 2 more weeks, right? So you're right around the month mark, just over past a month. Where would you say, Adam, that offer is going to come in at? You started at 400, now you're at 389.9. Where's that offer coming in at? You've been on the market for about 35 days.
If I just saw that the price was dropped, I mean, I'm venturing a guess that the offer is going to come in lower than that, lower than 389.9, or is it going to be somewhere in the middle? My first guess would be it's going to be lower.
Yeah, you're right. You're correct. It more often than not every time. I mean, if it sells quickly, like that first weekend after making a price adjustment, which by the way is a smart move if you've got an interested party, making a price adjustment, getting somebody off the fence. And we are definitely in a validation market, which has always been the case, where another buyer goes, oh, somebody else likes it? Oh, I like it too. Right. Mm-hmm. So you can easily go from no interested parties to 2 with a proper, well-timed price adjustment. But where I'm going with this is we're still having sellers reject offers. And it's like, that is 100% on the agent not preparing the seller for the reality that, like, don't reject a 93 or 94% offer. And I know that is technically an A in elementary school. It won't feel like an A to the seller, right? I mean, $400,000, to keep it at that example, 5% off is what, $20,000. So that's about 25, right? So if they hadn't had to make a price adjustment and they've been on the market for say 14 to 17 days and they get their first offer, yeah, it will probably come in around 370, 375, which is what, like 90, 3%, right? Somewhere in that vicinity. So
I'm trusting your math on this because I can't do that in my head.
yeah, well, $30,000 is 6%, right?
Yeah.
400, no, is no, it's a 7.5%. I was close, 7.5%. So 92.5% offer if they come in at 370. And that's not a crazy offer. And of course, the buyer is hoping is to get them down to 385 or slightly below. And the seller is, of course, going, well, I want, and what's happening right now, back in the day, Adam, the seller would go, cool. All right, what do we do? Well, now, because of the market we just left, and it's been a while, but for some people, especially we're meeting with a lot of people who bought in 21 and 22, and they're still mentally in that market. So they are going, well, no, that's terrible. That's offensive. I reject your offer outright. Get out of my face. And we're going, wait, no, no, don't. This isn't the thing. That's not a thing. So I wanted to and a lot of the listeners, probably the vast majority of people listening are going, I'm not buying or selling anytime soon. And that all sounds like what I went through. And yeah, I mean, like that's normal. That's where you went through. But if you bought in 21 or 22 or 23, this might not be normal to you.
Yeah. We sold in 2021 with the Ginther group, and we, like many people during that time, and we sold in the spring. Like it was, I think, just before Memorial Day, when we put ours on the market. And because this is what was happening at the time, multiple the calendar was filled with visits for the foreseeable future, multiple offers coming in. We got offers immediately, one after another. A lot of them were above asking. And, you know, like you said, if people bought a house in 21, it's tough to shake them of that anomaly that was 2021 because I mean, you have to have that level of competition for people to offer at asking price or above that, correct?
Yeah, yes. Okay, two things as you're telling that story that came to my mind. First of all, you did a lot of work to get that home in optimal showing condition, right? I mean, we worked together to line it up,
Oh
and
yeah, we put money into it. We put a
but
significant amount of money into it.
you made an investment and it paid off. And
Yes.
that is, we are definitely back in that market. We left it for about 2 years there. You didn't have to do that in 21. Frankly, we were just accustomed to that being the right thing, and you were rewarded. Now, the second thing, so we're definitely back in that market. Sellers, if they're putting the work in, can still get bidding wars. Absolutely. And frankly, I don't do this very often, but a seller approached us wanting cash offers. We brought them cash offers. They hated them all, and then they said, "What would you pay for it?" And we were like, "Well, we'll pay more than the cash offers, but like, are you sure you want to do this? We'll just renovate your house for you and list it for you. Do our renovation program." And they went, "No, we want a cash offer right now. We want the money and we'll run." And we went, "Okay, we're gonna put everything in writing and then we're gonna." So bottom line is, we just did that. Okay, we just have gone through this experience, and we now are getting multiple interested in offer parties. So it can absolutely happen if you spend the money and the time. Now, that's still a reality. The second thing that I need to say that listeners, hopefully this isn't them, but if they bought in the spring of 22 or 23 or after, they might not be in the black if
Hmm.
they have to sell today. And that's not to say that the housing prices didn't go up a little bit, because they did. They went up a couple of percentage points. But, like what we just said, it costs money to sell. So if you've lived in your home, you have kids or you have dogs, and your house now needs to be painted to look as good as it did when you bought it, and you ultimately haven't, like, if you've made a massive improvement, if you've paid top dollar for it, you might not recoup that. And if you haven't made any improvements and you've lived in it, and now we have to paint it or get it, looking good, you might. There are right now we're meeting with a lot of people who are mostly breaking even. Some are making a little bit, and there's maybe one or two who are like potentially going to have to maybe lose a little bit. Um, and Again, they go, wait a second, but the housing market has gone up. Well, it has a couple percentage points each year, but if you just bought 2 years ago, that's the other thing, Adam, about expectations. I don't like we got way out of whack with this. Like we can buy it, own it for a year, and then sell it and make money. Like that's not these aren't houses aren't stocks. We've said I feel like we say this every show, but housing it's not a stock.
That's what people do when they flip houses. That's the you have to put a lot of money into it because it's in poor condition and do it. Like those are the people that are making money after a year of owning it. If it's your primary residence, you're not making
Right.
you can't have that expectation.
Full transparency, like the house that we bought, that we paid more than other investors, but ultimately it's still an investment property. We put 50K and like it's going to end up taking us 5 months. Not that we wanted it to take that long, but that's what it did. So there was carrying costs. There's 50K. There's at the end of the day, it's not gonna be like a home run. It's gonna be like a single, maybe a single and a half, but definitely not a double. So it can happen, but most people aren't treating a primary home like an investment property, nor should they.
Life is full of celebrations, birthdays, holidays, life milestones, and so much more. And who has been helping generations of families celebrate these events? Our friends at Dewey's Bakery. And even if you aren't planning for something in the near future, you don't have to wait to enjoy something savory and delicious from Dewey's. Maybe you just need something to get you through your Mondays. Drop by every Monday for a free Cake Square Day. No purchase necessary. Just come celebrate the start of a new week. So, if you're hearing this ad on a Monday and you're in your car, reset that GPS and get to one of their 3 Triad locations immediately in Winston-Salem at Thruway and Renolda Manor, plus one in Greensboro at Friendly Shopping Center. And any day of the week, you can find the perfect item with fast and easy ordering options at local.deweys.com. Plus, Dewey's does so much to help celebrate our community. To date, they've given back over $4 million to local schools, churches, and other nonprofits. Your next celebration isn't complete without something special from Dewey's Bakery. Dewey's. Celebrate every day.
I want to go back to something you said earlier, and I want to maybe see if you can lay it out as an example. You said verification offers or verification price drops.
Validation market.
Validation. Sorry, not verification.
No,
validation.
It's okay. It's same thing.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could tell us, okay, how does somebody strategically use a price drop, maybe increase competition for their home?
So I think price drops are best done at 2 different times. The first is when you have crickets, you better price drop. Unless there's an act of God, like unless there's like terrible weather like we just went through. If you had crickets for 2 weeks during the weather's, snowstorm, that's hard to know. That was a tricky market to navigate as a seller and as an agent. Because by the way, we still went on a contract like on a handful of things each of those weeks. So things still did move, just slowly. So I would say the best time to price drop is when you have an interested party or 2, preferably, on the fence. And when I say validation market, I mean it's the same. You put yourself in a store, you're looking at several different products that are all basically similar, and you're just not sure. Right? I mean, honestly, Adam, not to promote alcohol, but you're in a beer aisle and you're just looking at 2 or 3 beers and you're like, I don't know. And somebody comes up and they grab this one beer that you were considering. It is totally human nature for you to go, well, there it is. And you grab the one that they just grabbed because they just validated your decision. And that's the same with real estate. I mean, there are a lot of people who are on the fence and they're going, well, why? Because we're back to days on market being, over a month. We're floating between 35 and 45 days on market average. And so buyers are then going, well, things used to sell in a day. I have some time. And so they're sleeping on it, maybe a little too long sometimes. And then they're going, why hasn't it sold? Blake, I don't know. I like this house, but why hasn't it sold? And I'm like, well, it's only been on the market like a month. Well, that's a long time. No, it's not quite average yet. You know what I mean? And then I go, oh, by the way, that house you like, agent just called me. They got an offer. 9 times out of 10, it's just human nature. The client goes, okay, let's make an offer.
Yeah. I remember this happened when we bought our current home. We weren't with full disclosure, we were not with the Ginther group for that purchase.
They totally
Uh,
cheated on me. It
I
was
did.
hurtful,
Yep. hmm I'm
but
going
it
to
was
admit
also
it.
before we ever met.
That's correct. Before this podcast started, all of it. And that happened to us. We were considering this home, and it was the notion of competition or another interested party that got us going. I've always been curious though, because look, it happens in a lot of areas of business. You say these things, and in sales, it probably happens all the time. I've always been curious, how often is that the truth? How often do agents bluff? Not saying that anybody on your team does it. I'm talking about broadly. How often do they try to call the bluff of an interested party?
You know, I'd like to believe that that never happens because as a National Association of Realtor, for that emblem to be, we pay so that we're supposed to ethically be bound.
Yep.
Now, I also am not naive to the fact that that probably happens. I will tell you that there's a handful of agents in our city that have that reputation because it's uncanny how every single time that happens.
After we stop recording, I'm going to ask you to name names.
Okay, I will name names privately, never on this on a public syndication. But yeah, I think it is. There are a couple. Listen, Winston's a tiny town. Like you talk smack about somebody, they'll find out. It's so you can only do that once or twice without getting the reputation. So, not outside of those outliers, I don't think it's very common. And so buyers should expect, but to your point, most buyers, and I wouldn't say most, a lot of buyers get cynical and go, oh, they've been on the market 35 days and now they've got multiple interested parties. And my response is usually, well, to be fair, you've been interested now for a week or two. And you've heard me say this, Adam. Are do you think you're that weird? Are you like just like a
Not that
total?
weird.
Are you just a total one off? Like you're just an outlier, strange human. Nobody else could like the same home as you.
Yeah. We've said it. Yeah, you've said it before. If you think you're weird, you're not that weird.
I mean, you're probably not. You might be weird in certain ways, but as it pertains to housing, you're not that weird.
I mean, look, I appreciate the transparency. I've always appreciated the transparency that you and your team offer. I've always felt like you guys have been straight shooters. And look, what have we always said when you talk about meeting with people? It's we're not going to always tell you to go with us. We're going to always tell you to consider your options, whether you're choosing to go with us, whether you've got offers or you don't have offers. We are not going to try to influence you one way or the other. There is strategy. There's a difference between strategy and being unethical. Strategy comes with honesty,
Yep.
but I think your market validation technique is, I don't even want to say it's a technique. It's just something that naturally happens sometimes.
Well,
That can
we
make a
can't
difference.
we don't create the market, but
Right.
it is our job to consistently like read it and pay attention to it and then communicate it, right? And so that constant communication around the reality of the thing that neither the buyer, the seller, nor the agent control, but ultimately is the reality of where we are, which is price in the market in general.
Yeah. All right. Last question I want to ask you is what should someone's timeline be if they want to maybe beat the rush in terms of getting things ready to go?
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you're considering buying now, I think that what's going to happen is the inventory more are going to because of the delay of the storms, we're going to have a lot more inventory, and when inventory hits, more buyers hit. Because inevitably what happens is like what happened to me, probably what happened to you is a spouse goes, "Did you see this? This looks really good." And then a couple days later, "Can we go see this?" And then all of a sudden you're in the game. And that happens typically from a listing, which will, when there are only 950 of, is less likelihood. When there are 1,200 of them, which is coming, there will be a higher likelihood. And there will be just so therefore, if you're a seller, you go, okay, so I'm entering the peak season. Amen. Yes, you're probably already getting ready. If you haven't, like, call your agent, get ready. It takes a couple weeks to get ready, probably, to do it right. As a buyer, the longer you wait, the later we get. I mean, really, past St. Patrick's Day, in my opinion, from St. Patrick's Day to school letting out is peak buyer season. You will be in peak competition with other buyers.
Okay. Yeah. St. Patrick's Day is, I don't know the exact date, but it's always in the middle of March. So
basically a month from when we're recording this. You got
Yep.
about a month to get in the game with less competition. You know, here's the good news though. If you're later and you get in the game later, yes, there'll be more competition, but it's a healthy market. It's not a crazy market, and you'll definitely have more inventory.
Yeah. Okay. That's great stuff, my man. If people want to get in touch with you and your team to talk about their situation, if they want to get in the game or they're getting ready to get in the game, how can they find y'all?
They can Google us and read the reviews that only like 1 or 2 was written by my mom at theginthergroup.com, or Google the Ginther Group, Ginther, or call us 336-283-8689, 283-8689. And Adam, I think we should coin this, you might be weird, but as it pertains to real estate, you're not that weird show.
Perfect. I love it when you give me a title for the episode. I don't have to think of one on my own. Perfect. Yep. Well, you and I are definitely our own versions of weird, but maybe not when it comes to real estate. But
we lean in.
Yeah. Blake, stay weird.
Hey, stay weird, Adam.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode on the Triad Podcast Network. Our mission is simple: provide information, advice, and stories about the people and places that make the North Carolina Triad such a great place to be. You can find us by searching Triad Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you like to listen. If you like what you heard and want to support the show and those that contribute, we would truly appreciate a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps spread the word along, as do your shares on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Triad Podcast. To get in touch with us, simply email info@triadpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.